Hey guys, so today we'll be learning how to make the Tomoko Fuse rose unit. It is my favorite unit by far. As you've been able to see probably from my Instagram, I use this unit a ton in my pieces, from 30 unit pieces like these guys right here to larger 90 unit pieces like this. It's the same unit for all of these, and so today we're going to go through how to make it, how to fold it, and then a little bit on assembling for specifically the 30 unit piece. I'll probably do a later video on the 90 unit piece if there's interest in doing something like that. So let's jump right in. So the first thing to note in terms of sizing of these units and of the pieces overall, I usually start with a 6x6 inch sheet of paper, usually that's standard origami sized paper, and I cut that piece down into 32 2x1 rectangles. The Tomoko Fuse rose unit actually uses a 2x1 rectangle instead of a square to make the unit. So I would cut this in half, and then cut those in half, and then cut those in half, etc. until I have 32 size pieces of this size, which are 1.5 inch by 0.75 inch pieces here. And then I would take 30 of these, I would discard 2 of them or save them for later, and then fold them up and make the unit. Today for instruction, we'll be using pieces of this size, which are pieces that are 1.5 inches by 3 inches. It just makes it easier for instruction to see the larger paper, basically. So that's what we'll be using today, but just know that I usually use pieces of this size to make pieces of units of this size. Great, so moving right along. So to get started, depending on how you, especially if you have two-sided paper, which I do in this case, this side's white, this side's blue. For double-sided paper, it doesn't matter, but you'll notice that for double-sided paper, or for paper with just a different color on each side, the pattern on the final piece does get impacted. So basically, if you want the color on the tips, you keep the color on the outside when you're folding. And I'll explain what I mean in a second. So let's get started. So if we want the color on the tips, like I said, we want to keep the color on the outside. So we'll start by taking the 2x1 rectangle and just folding in half the long way like this. And just do your best to line up the corners. Okay. From there, we'll take top right corner, bottom left corner, fold these corners into the median here, into that fold that we just created. So we have something that looks a little bit like this. Okay? Next step's a little tricky. You flip it over and you put this corner to this corner here. So you fold them up and you just touch the corners. So it looks something like this. Okay? And we're not fully folding it. I just stamp it like this with my thumb and forefinger, and that's it. And this is kind of like the first step, okay? Next, a little bit tricky here, we unfold these corners, and we basically try to take this edge and line it up between these two corners here. So we take this edge, line it up between these two corners. I'll show you what I mean. But basically, we fold it up until it's something like this, and there should be a little bit of overhang. See this little corner up top here? That's okay, you want a little bit of overhang there. But you see how we lined up this edge here between like this here and this here? That's more or less what you want. So there's something like this, and you do the same on the other side. And this should nicely line up with the previous fold we just made. So something like this, okay? Next step, we take this and line it up with this. So the two tips, okay? And this should be made a little bit easier by the fold we did earlier, but you see how we line them up like that, and then we just crease this whole bottom, okay? Next, we open it up, and we're getting close. We basically take this and line it up here, more or less. So I'll show you what I mean. But we take this tip and line it up against this, this edge here. This tip, line it up with this edge. So we use something like this. Sorry, I'll do it upside down like this is usually the way I do it. Just like that, so this tip is nicely touching the center line, and this corner is nicely touching the edge here. And this is actually one of the points where you can do a few variations on the unit, which maybe I'll go into in the future. And you do your best to make it line up. There we go. So we have something like this. We're getting pretty close again. Next step, we fold this corner, this back here. You'll see we have like a pocket here now, and we just squish it like that. Same to the other side. You fold this back and squish the pocket. Okay. Finally, we're gonna come together, make it look like this, turn it around, and you fold this to kind of match in line with this triangle we're sort of creating. You can kind of see the geometry of the whole piece here. So you could do this, and the same on the side as well. Just fold it back so you have something that looks like this. You open it back up, and basically just folding these flaps, creasing the flaps over like this. Okay, and we're done. And you unfold, and this is the finished unit. Now you just do this 29 more times until you have 30, and we'll move on to assembly. Great, so now that we folded 30 of these, let's get started with assembly. So unlike the Bashetta Star and the Sonobe unit that we've created in the past, where we created groups of 3 units to create kind of points, in this unit, we're going to use groups of 5. So let me explain what I mean. So assembly is simple. We're basically taking the flap here and putting it in the pocket here. It's not super challenging. I really like the way that it locks in, and there's no little hole in the tip and stuff like there are sometimes with my Sonobe units at least. And we do that a few more times here. So that's 3. This is going to be 4, and then this is going to be 5. And this is again for the 30 unit model. And basically you just wrap this around and you put this into this little pocket here. Pretty easy. And there we go. This is our first point. So notice we're using points of 5, and you can see how the color, this cool vortex is on the tip there. And that's because we folded with the blue on the outside when we originally folded our units. And now you basically just keep doing this. So you just keep adding pieces. Assembly is actually really easy until you get to the last point, which we'll kind of go over. But I'll do a few more here. You basically just add the units in, adding pockets into flaps in the pockets here. Pretty straightforward. And you see we have now 3 here. Well, we'll just complete this one real quick. I like to complete them as I go. It makes it a lot more stable. And we'll grab another unit here. And we'll create this point as well. There we go. So you can see now that we have 2 points here, and we're making good progress. You basically just keep filling in, adding pockets to flaps, or flaps to pockets, until you basically use all the units. And we'll kind of jump ahead here, and I'll get to the last piece, which can be a little bit challenging. Okay, so now that you've assembled the majority of the unit minus 2 pieces, I'll just quickly give you an explanation, or just a demonstration on how to put those last 2 in, because it can be a little bit challenging sometimes, especially the last unit, depending on the size of the model. I think for a model of this size, actually, it shouldn't really be that hard. But sometimes for a model of smaller size, you have to get in there with tweezers and make sure everything's good to go. But for now, you just, again, pockets, flaps, easy, doing stuff like this. We have one more thing. Sometimes this unit, or this piece gets really dug in, especially in small units, so I like to have a handy set of tweezers here and just kind of help get it out, especially on small units. This is very, very helpful. And then again, just finally putting those last couple flaps in the pockets here. And then I'll quickly do a quick check just to make sure all the flaps made it into their pockets. Sometimes they don't along the way, or sometimes they get a little dislodged when you're moving things around later on in assembly. But yeah, everything looks great, and that's the final piece, then the final piece of the assembly. So hope this was helpful for you guys. If you're interested in learning more about different variants, so a variant like this, for example, is just a slight alteration of one of the steps in the folding, or larger assembly pieces like this, again, we're using the same unit as this one right here, but we're folding 90 of them, and the assembly is a little bit a different little pattern there. So if you're interested in either of these, let me know down in the comments. Go follow me on Instagram and stuff if you're interested in this kind of content. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope this was helpful. Have a good one.